Hi, Maddy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm so excited about this conversation. I am such a fangirl of you on the internet. I love what you're doing. I love your story. I'm so thankful for you to be here on the podcast and share your story. I think that everyone needs to hear your incredible, just your story and who you are. I think you're an incredible person. But anyway, I guess if you can maybe just give us a quick little, you have some super viral videos about your story, like the quick version, and then I want to dig in and
Okay, so a brief summary would be that I identified as transgender for years. I was born female at birth, and then I identified as transgender and started medical transition through hormones. I never did any surgeries, but I started hormones and was on those for about 3 years, and I have since decided to detransition. And well, I guess we'll talk about why. But
yes.
uh, started the going to kind of start at the beginning of like when I was younger and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah. I obviously there's a lot more to that story. I would love to kind of peel back some layers and yeah, tell me more.
Okay, so when I was growing up as a younger kid, I was definitely like the tomboy kind of thing. Like I wasn't really into dresses or princesses or anything like that. I wanted to be barefoot, climbing trees, running around outside. Um, One of my favorite shirts was a bug shirt, and it had just like a whole lot of bugs on it, and it had like the names of it underneath it. Anyways, that doesn't
Nice.
matter. But I just was not your typical like little girl, I guess. And anyways, so around the ages of 13 or 14, I found out what the word transgender was, and I had never really heard of that. And once I found out about it, I just like kind of dove into it on the internet and was like, whoa, like this is what I am. Like this is who I am. Like that's why I like girls, and that's why I'm more masculine, and that's why, so
Yeah.
I leaned into that. And around 14 or 15, I think, I started uh going by Ryder online. I had an Instagram account called Ryder 505, and I just kind of posed as a guy. Like I'm sure everybody on there knew that I wasn't, but
Yeah.
I tried her and I was doing that thing. My mom found out about that Instagram account, and it just kind of all blew up. And it happened at my grandma's house, and my aunt ended up coming down to the house. And anyways, it was a big
Whole
thing, and I
thing.
ended up,
Yeah.
yeah, ended up moving out of their house and moved in with my dad. And then my dad found out. I guess my mom might have said something to him, or maybe it was just because of the way I was dressing and stuff like that. But he eventually found out, and it just did not go well there either. So I ended up moving back in with my mom, and then I moved back in with my grandma. Like it was a whole. I was bouncing around for a second.
Yeah.
I felt. um. Anyways, so but the more and so after they found out initially, and after my dad found out as well, I started trying to like lean more into the feminine thing and try to
Mhm.
like go back closet, I guess. If uh, and so I tried to dress feminine and act feminine and let my hair grow back out and all this stuff. Uh, but it did never feel right. I was really depressed. I was really anxious. I was self harming, and also going back a little bit, I started self harming at age 11.
Wow.
Um, it was the stupidest reason ever that I started, but uh, anyways, I continued doing that as I got older, and I didn't stop until I was 23, I think.
Wow.
So that was a
Over 10
long,
years of self-harming.
yeah, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
long deal. But so I was just depressed and anxious, and I felt like transition was the only thing that was gonna help me get out
Mm.
of that. Like I felt like the reason that I was depressed and anxious and all this stuff and had all these mental health issues was because I wasn't like living my true self, and I was living for everyone else around me. Like I was just trying to be a girl to appease my parents and my
Yeah.
family and stuff. Um, so once I moved out, I and like got my own place, I started looking into hormone treatment, and I had to get a letter of recommendation from a therapist. But I only went to like two or three counseling sessions. I feel like it was not very long at all,
Wow.
and that letter and I took it to an endocrinologist in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that day, like the day of my appointment there, I got testosterone.
Wow.
So, which I was super stoked about, but here we are. Um, anyway, so I ended up getting on testosterone, and I was still living in McAllister, Oklahoma, and I ended up getting with this girl, and we moved to Oklahoma City, and I was living as Matthew, using he/him pronouns and stuff, and very few people in the city knew that I was transgender because I passed really well. Like I don't know if yeah, you've seen pictures. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Shaved head, facial hair, the whole thing.
yeah. So I worked at Dillard's, and I kind of stepped out of my shell and stopped being as anxious and whatnot. But something still was missing because I was drinking and I was smoking pot and doing all this other stuff to try to like fill that void. Even though I felt like I was doing good and I felt like I was just smoking and just drinking because it was fun,
Mhm,
like that's what it felt like I was doing. But looking back, I really feel like I was still trying to fill that void that I had.
mhm.
Uh, so yeah. Anyways, then in 2020, yeah, when COVID hit, yeah, was it? Yeah, so 2020 is when COVID hit. So we ended up moving back to to my I ended up moving back to my grandparents' house, but in an RV on their property.
You were engaged to the girl at this point, right?
And I was engaged to my ex fiance, and
Wow.
we both moved there and lived in this RV on my grandparents' property because we had gotten evicted from our uh, apartment in the city, and we had gotten furloughed from our job due to COVID. So, and we got evicted because we had too many animals. We weren't like throwing wild parties or anything, but got evicted. So we ended up having to move. And my great grandma had passed away around this time, and so I had just recently got back into contact with my grandparents. I wasn't really talking to my mom at this point, but my grandparents were talking to me, and I was talking to them, and we kind of rekindled that relationship we had. And so whenever we got evicted, I talked to them and was like, "Hey, could we buy this RV?" And they were like, "No, but you can stay in it." They were like, "You can't buy it, but you can stay in it." So we ended up staying in it in their driveway, and my nana would bring us like dinner and but it was just like they were treating us like normal human beings.
Mhm.
And then, like I said earlier, my great grandma had passed away, and so her house was just sitting vacant and had been for a couple of years, I think, because she had been in a nursing home towards the end of her life, and they decided that they would let me buy it from them. So I was buying this house. Me and my ex fiance both were living there. Um, we were planning on getting married, but there was still some of my great grandma's old stuff in there, and she was a singer songwriter, gospel singer songwriter. Um, so I was going through her old stuff one time, trying to clear out the guest bedroom, and I found one of her old songs, and the song said, "God's working all things out for your good if you'd only trust Him like you should." And I was like, like funny, mama, whatever. Okay. So but for some reason that made me feel like I should start praying. I was like, you know what? Like, let me just try this praying. So I prayed on and off. In December of 2020, my job was going to close down for a few weeks because of Christmas, but I didn't have enough leave saved up to get paid during that time. I ended up, I wasn't going to have a job, but my buddy texted me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, do you want to come pick water leaves off of marijuana plants?" So I was like, "Yeah, for sure. Like, I need a job and you're offering me one. Like, I'll do it." And so I go up there for a couple weeks and end up picking water leaves off these plants. And while I'm in there, like there's a lot of white noise from fans and the lights buzzing and stuff, and you can't really have a conversation with another person. So my buddy was listening to music, and I was like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? So I started praying, and the first thing I did was thank God for the job. I was like, okay, thanks God, like thank you for the job that you've provided because I wouldn't have gotten paid otherwise. Like that's cool, thanks. And then waited a little while, didn't really know what else to say. And then I got thinking about it and I was like, you know what? Thank you for my family. Like, how did, and then I asked the question, how did it go from them never wanting to see me and them like not wanting anything to do with me? Like, I wasn't allowed to see my siblings or anything like that. And I promise you, it's like I heard the voice of God say, I gave them the spirit of love. And I have that same spirit of love if you would quit running from it. And that night I knew I was like, okay, I'm 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 gonna break off this engagement and I'm gonna detransition. And
That
it was
quickly.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I don't know. I just that's just what that's the conviction that hit my heart after he spoke to me that like that. But it wasn't like a condemnation type of
Yeah.
thing. I wasn't saying, "Oh, well, God's real and I'm terrified and I have to
Yeah.
change my life." But it was like I have better plans for you and for her.
Yeah.
Like this isn't my perfect design. And I made you the way that I wanted you to be.
Yeah.
You know, I knew I don't know. But it was crazy how fast that happened. And
Yeah.
I was terrified. My whole life was about to flip upside down. I knew I was going to do it. And I actually, my buddy Tyler, he's the one that got me the job there, and he had also met God not too long ago in the grow house. But also, I was not smoking, just for anybody listening. So, because I had several people be like, "Oh, well, you were probably just high." Like, no, I wasn't smoking. I had a government job, still do. I don't smoke the green stuff. Okay, so
No, well, and I just love that part of the story because, when I was a kid, I used to think that all the Bible was a bunch of perfect people and like, here's go do likewise. But instead, as I learned it, it's a bunch of mess ups. And I feel like if we were to record, I don't know, the saints today, like your story of a girl transitioning to a guy in a marijuana house, hears the voice of the Lord. Like, yes, of course he met you there. Of course he met you there. That's like where, and we used to think that, like, we think that only Jesus only talks to perfect people. Like, no, he was so after your heart. And I just love that story so much.
absolutely, yeah, it's correct. He's not scared of anything. He ain't scared of
Amen.
going. You know,
Yeah.
omnipresent. He's everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
Like you are.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I knew that night, and I was like, Tyler, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I know that I'm gonna have to do it.
Yeah.
So talking to him, and I was crying, and he was crying, and we were like trying to figure life out together. And uh, so I waited a week to the day from that day to actually break off the engagement and let her know that I was going to detransition. And the reason being is because I was praying like adamantly that God would somehow speak to her and let her know that I wasn't breaking it off because I didn't love her. I wasn't breaking it off because she wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't
Mhm.
breaking it. She did anything wrong. Like I needed her to know that I loved her so much, and that's why I was breaking it off
Yeah.
because of my love for her, and my love for God. And
Yeah.
so, uh, anyways, it went way better than I had expected. I told her, and well, initially, later on, I kind of, anyways, uh, so, I told her, and she was like, I mean, I don't really agree. So I was raised in church. I was raised Church of Christ, which I don't really, I guess, identify with the labels of denominations,
Yeah.
but that's what I grew up in, and she grew up in a Baptist church, so like she knows the the gospel and all these things. But she said that she, didn't really agree that it was wrong because everybody sins, and I was like, well, but I can't keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
She was like, okay, well, I mean, she said, I love the fact that you love God enough to do this.
Yeah.
And so that that made me feel a lot better
Yeah.
initially. I was
Yeah.
probably part was talking to her about it. And then after that, uh, I just had to really lean in on Christ because I had been telling everybody like this is who I am and this is my truth, and like I am a guy and I was
Mhm.
supposed to be a guy from the beginning, and then I'm having to go back on that. Now, some people say that like I when I detransitioned, I I was just doing it because I was brainwashed or whatever, and that I was never trans to begin with, and that I just realized I made a mistake, and I'm using religion as like a excuse for that. But I'm gonna tell you right now, like transitioning was the right decision for my flesh, not for laying down my life and picking up my cross.
Yeah.
My flesh was totally into that. I was in all the way. Like that's how I felt.
Yeah.
But through Christ, there is freedom, and I'm not called to live by the flesh.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah,
That's what happened.
yeah, that's what happens.
I love how you talk about how the big transition also with your family that, get out of my house, we don't want to talk to you, can't even see your siblings. And not a whole lot of time. I know some time passed, but then this whole like, as you said, God gave them the spirit of love. And I think we were talking one time and you were talking about how that spoke to you so much too, and kind of maybe soften your heart to accept Christ or whatever it was. Like we see Christ in people and how they kind of just modeled that for you. So I want you to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, like I started seeing the love of Christ through my family because I knew how they had felt about it because obviously things did not go well initially.
Yeah.
Didn't really talk for a couple years. Well, not whenever we were living in the city. My family and I really didn't communicate. My mom would send me some stuff, uh, like for Christmas or my birthday or whatever. But one year I think it was a Valentine's Day present from her or something in the mail, and I texted her and I was like, "Hey, if I can't be around you, stop stop sending me things because
Yeah.
it's helping anything. Like if I so anyways, that was so yeah, we didn't really talk for quite a while. She was trying to still reach out with those things, but it really was just hurting because she wouldn't want me to come around and be there around my siblings. So I was just getting mixed signals and it hurt me a lot because I miss my mom, you know?
Mm.
But I knew their views on things because it didn't go well the first time. And whenever they started treating me like a normal human being, they weren't accepting now, let me just point this out. They weren't accepting my new identity that I was identifying as. They still called me Madeline and they still called me like she, her.
Mhm.
So that never changed. Also, because I was trying to be respectful of them, whenever started living there, I kept myself shaved and
Mhm.
whatnot. So I didn't have a whole goatee coming into my grandma's house because I was trying to just be respectful of them because I knew their views. And because I also grew up Christian and I never stopped believing in God. I should also say that, I guess. And so I knew what their fears were, and so I wasn't really holding the way that they were acting against them at all. Um, just because I knew it was hard for them as well. So I was trying to have grace and mercy in that. Um, but yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
No, it's okay. I think your story is just so powerful, and I love it how you say, I was born a girl, identified as a guy, and now I identify as a child of God."
Right. Right.
I just think that that's so beautiful. And and I also think that it's been amazing how your story has been so redeemed because now you're a mother.
Yes, ma'am.
That's so exciting. And like you taking hormones, was that a fear? Did that maybe could happen one day, or do you know?
Once I quit, because yeah, it was. If you have an option to like to freeze your eggs or whatever, I didn't do that.
Wow.
And it's different for everybody. Like somebody could be on testosterone for 1 year
Uh,
and is again, and somebody could be on testosterone for 15 years and get pregnant while they're on testosterone.
wow.
It doesn't, it really depends on the person. It's not, and I don't think it's been studied near enough to be
Yeah.
able to say one way or the other. But for me, I was very blessed in the fact that I was able to have a child, and now I have a little. She'll be 4 months old on the on Saturday. So
A little baby. Oh my goodness. Well, I just love your story and I'm thankful that you share it. I'm curious going back to well, goodness, all because all of these thoughts started so early, but I know you kind of talked about we'll get back to that earlier, that yourself about your tomboy self and thinking that, well, you're just broken or something like that. And yeah, talk to me about that.
So God kind of opened my eyes up to some things once I opened myself up to Him and like started leaning into His love and allowing Him to love on me. And one of the things that He showed me was that like because I was more attracted to females, and I went to a Church of Christ church, and you kind of hear things. They didn't ever really say stuff like this in front of me intentionally, but just the gay people go to hell, and that it's not okay to be gay and all this stuff. Well, I was more inclined to lean towards women, and I feel like that's a big part of what made me start identifying
Mhm.
as a male. Because I was like, okay, well, if I'm a guy, then I'm straight.
Oh, oh,
So I feel like that probably has a lot to do with it. And then another thing that God kind of opened my eyes to, um, my dad was not. I mean, Dad, if you're listening, like
mm,
he's doing way better now. He's great. He's worked on himself a lot. But back then, like he wasn't the greatest as far as like communicating things and not getting angry and saying some things and doing some
mhm,
things. So I wanted to be a better dad than my dad was,
mhm.
and I wanted to be a better husband than my dad was. He's a really good husband to my stepmom now, but whenever him and my
Yeah.
mom were like, she would say things sometimes that would make me think things, and so, anyways, I wanted to be a better dad than my dad and a better husband than my husband, and or no, better husband than my mom than he was to my mom. Um, and also during that period of time when I was trying to act the part of a girl, whenever they had initially found out and I was trying to go back in the closet or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, During that time, I dated a couple guys, and some things happened that just weren't great. And so I wanted to be like, I didn't trust men to protect women, I
Mhm.
guess. And I have a really big heart. And so I was like, I want to treat a woman the way that she should be treated, so I
Mm.
guy to do that. So like when I found this girl that I really liked and whatever, we ended up being together for almost 3 years.
Wow. Your heart was in the right place. Like, I want to quote fix the dating world. I want to have be a good husband, but it's just I always look at us as children. Like, it's like I want to do the right thing, but in a way like, oh, let me fix it. And God's like, why don't you let me fix it? You
He's like, you can't fix everything. You
like,
can't,
that's
and
cute.
right, but that's cute. But yeah, it didn't. But that I feel like that's where my mindset was because I hadn't ever thought of anything like that until I started praying and talking to God and seeking His wisdom and
Right.
asking for myself. And then he kind of opened my eyes to that being part of the reason that I wanted to transition. And uh, actually, about a month ago, I was talking to someone who I think she was 17, and she was considering transitioning and or had already socially transitioned, and her mom was like talking to her about me, and her mom reached out to me and asked if I could talk to her. And I mean, I was like, if she's willing to, like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna try to talk to anybody who doesn't want to talk to about it, but she was. And so I got on the phone with her a few days later, and I explained that part of my testimony to her. And she was like, huh, like I had never thought of that because her family dynamic wasn't the best either. And so, I mean, I'm not quite sure. I need to reach out to her again and see how she's doing. But anyways, yeah. So that's something that you're Satan tries to blind you to
Hmm.
the different traumas and different things that can cause these other issues, which is why I really wish that it did not only take 2 or 3 counseling sessions for me to get
I know, right?
it. A lot of people, it is that way, which is something else. And then also, like with kids transitioning, I cannot.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that can cause someone to feel this way.
Right. Well, yeah, I want to. I have a few more questions, but like feelings. I have this blog post that stood out in my mind that says feelings are leaves that, they can seem overwhelming, like in the summertime when they're covering the tree, but they come and go with the seasons, right? And so if we are to make a huge decision, like changing who we are as like human, like male or female, based on feelings, I just that I have a lot of questions, like I guess I'm curious. Well, sorry, so many directions I want to go with this.
You're good.
I love what you do online, and you welcome people to have conversations with you about this. Hey, if you're having this way, this is a safe place. Like if you have these feelings, this is a safe place to talk to me about the kind of stuff. I'm curious what you hear, what people say when they reach out. Like, is it, I don't know, just struggles in their own skin? Is it family issues trying to save the world? Like, yeah, I'm curious what you hear.
Yeah. Uh, Usually it's like family members that are talking to know how to help or what to do as far as their other beloved family member that's going down this path or having these thoughts. So that's usually what it is. But I do sometimes, I think I've gotten like three in the past couple weeks, messages from people who are questioning their gender identity, who say like, I grew up in the church, but then like this is my truth, and now I'm going to a Lutheran church that like, are different things that and
Yeah.
are going, that's accepting and doing this, but do how do I navigate this, or what kind of asking about my testimony too, and how what happened for me,
Yeah.
to see if similarities and whatnot. But usually if someone messages me, I'll just be like, hey, can I send you my number and you call me, because
Yeah.
this is gonna be easier over the phone.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the majority of what I get is family members and stuff. But again, I have gotten some people who have reached out who are in that hard place that I was in,
Yeah.
um, and haven't quite hit that real hard conviction that I did, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
Which that's not everybody, so I don't want anybody to assume that or to think that. But
Yeah.
that just my own testimony.
Well, I'm also curious what you've experienced when it comes to, it seems to be, and you experience this better than I have, but culturally, you come out of the closet and there's a parade and like, yo, good for you, you're brave. And then you realize, wait, like no, this isn't what I thought it would be. I do want to be who I'm created to be. I'm detransitioning. There seems to be a little more hate thrown your way. I would love for you to talk about that.
Yes. Okay. So the most hate or backlash that I've gotten with detransitioning has been online, because
Mm,
anybody who's actually met me in person, even people who are LGBTQIA plus whatever, like they if they've met me and they know me and know who I am
yeah.
as a person, like they didn't really have an issue with it or say anything. But just me saying that I'm detransitioning out on the internet in the open where anybody can
Yeah.
see it, they don't know who I am. They don't know what how deep into it I was, how real it was for me. Um, they don't know any of that stuff, so they kind of they throw the, oh well, you've been brainwashed, and or you were never trans to begin with. I'm like, if you would have met me 2 years ago, you would not be saying that. Like
Yeah.
you would know that I knew, as far as like, again, like I said, transition was the right decision for my flesh, but that's not what my soul needed.
Yeah.
And we're not called to live by the flesh. And it's so crazy how much self acceptance I have towards myself
Mm,
now, even with a deep voice, and I gotta pluck my chin hairs all the time. I have to buy new scissors all the time because I mean tweezers all the time because the hairs are so coarse. Like it ends up like making it to where they won't grab anything. Anyways, but yeah, it's crazy how God can change a heart.
I'm so glad you said that because I sense that about you and I love it. And I feel like you would probably say that's a total God thing, but like, yes, you do have a deeper voice, and that's be the rest of your life, right? Or yeah. And so these are consequences and the face plucking, whatever. But like if you're like, yeah, well, it's who I am. And you're so just beautifully confident. And that's what everyone craves. I think this, not in an arrogant way by any means, but you're just, I don't know how else to say it, but beautifully confident. And I think that it's captivating. I love it about you.
Appreciate that. And yeah, again, I never had that until I really sought out
Yeah,
God.
you were self-harming and stuff before.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I have all kinds of scars, but but yeah, it's crazy what he'll do. What he'll do if you lean on him, you know,
Yeah.
with your own understanding. And it is really now detransition. If anybody is watching this and has some sort of like identity thing going on right now, and you're considering detransitioning, like it was hard for me in the beginning. And I want to emphasize that because I don't want anybody to see my story and think, oh, well, it was so easy for Maddy. If God wanted me to detransition, he would make it easy for me. Like it was difficult in the very beginning, but I knew I needed to do it, but it was still a difficult thing because at living as a transgender trans man, I was constantly thinking about what other people thought or what other people saw when they saw me because obviously I wanted to pass as a male. So I was
Yeah.
like all conscious of what other people are seeing and what I looked like and what I but whenever I'm as far as detransitioning, if I was going by that, I would not anytime I pick up the phone it's okay, sir, or you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
but anyways, now it's just like I've gotten so close with God that he's literally the only opinion that I'm worried about because
So
his opinion,
good.
you know? So you have to find yourself really leaning on him instead of leaning on your own understanding and leaning on your own things or leaning on anybody else's opinions of
Yeah.
you. Like, yeah, anyways, you just gotta,
I just love you. And guys, if you're not following her online, you know, I'm your biggest fan. I think that seriously, you talking to the camera. It's not kind of fancy production. It's just your genuine, messy, but beautiful story. And I think I think that's how God shines because I don't know. I can't say enough that, I used to think that Christians were all the people who got everything right. And Jesus is like, hey, well, I'm going to talk to her in a marijuana growing plant. So,
yeah, for real.
or grow house or whatever they're called.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Again, he's not scared of nowhere and
I
he's everywhere.
know. So let's talk about for a second what you're doing online because was it your very first video of you with the short hair and you're putting on the makeup? And
That was my very first video ever.
how many
So I
millions
know
of views?
it 3 point something million.
Nice, nice.
So, but I mean, it's 100% a God thing and him using what he's done in my life to show other people. Cause I mean, it wasn't really a huge, big production, great put together thing. Like it was the first TikTok I'd ever made. It was not done super well. Like it's kind of cringy looking back on it. Like me trying to put on
People were still
eyeliner.
trying to figure out TikTok at that point. It was like 2020.
Right, that's fine. So, but yeah, I posted it and literally it was that night and it just blew up and I was like, what in the world is going on? But I mean, there was also a lot of hate on that video.
Of course.
But the overwhelming majority was positivity though, and like people saying like welcome home and this, that, and the fourth. And I don't know, it was just it was really cool. So, but I know that it was him because that video was not like movie quality,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
great thing is it was just me trying to tell the story that he's writing in my life.
Amen to that. And I'm like, I'm just so glad you said that because I want to say that next that your story, the story that God wrote in your life, it needs to be heard everywhere. And if you're listening and you need a speaker or a podcast guest, or I don't know, but Maddy, I'm like over here trying to be your hype girl that like your story needs to be heard. And of course, it's amazing what your transition story, but what I love the most about everything is you're so authentic and so real and beautifully messy beauty is the only one to know how to say it because it's just it's like it's not this clear cut beautiful story, or it is a beautiful story but it's not what we think of, like hey and then A and then B, like it's just
Not good.
this glorious mess, which is how nature is, right? You think about it, like a forest, it's just chaotically beautiful. I don't know, I'm on my soapbox, but I just love your story. I love you. And I think that everyone needs to have some Maddy in their lives, or at least follow you on the internet.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm always open to doing podcasts or talking, or if there's anybody close. Like, I'm actually doing a speaking thing next month on like the 30th at my friend's church. So hopefully that'll go well.
Nice. Oh,
Yeah,
good. Congratulations. Well, I will make sure I link all of your social profiles, and we'll definitely share that first viral video when we promote the episode because it's powerful. But anyways, I just appreciate you, and go give that baby some hugs from Auntie Katie.
I will. I hope you have a great day and thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.